Here's the thing about relationships that most people underestimate. When you connect with someone, when you've been there through moments, through laughter, through vulnerability, through intimacy, you don't just create memories, you leave an imprint. And for her, that imprint goes much deeper than you think. See, we as humans tend to measure loss only by what we see on the surface. We think, well, it was just a breakup. She'll be fine. Time heals. And yes, time helps. But here's the mistake. What you're not seeing is that the loss isn't just of you as a person. It's of everything that you represented to her. Every moment you had, every joke you shared, every morning text, every silly inside thing that only the two of you got. It's all lodged in her system like a tattoo on the soul. And tattoos don't just fade overnight. Now, what makes this especially powerful is that women, more often than not, are wired to feel connection on multiple levels. It's not just the physical presence that mattered to her. It's not even just the conversations. It's the way she felt herself around you. That's what stays. She remembers how her guard came down when you looked at her a certain way. She remembers how her day shifted when your name popped up on her phone. She remembers how safe she felt falling asleep next to you. And here's what people forget. When those things disappear, she doesn't just miss you. She misses the version of herself that existed when you were around. And that's why the loss feels so heavy. Because she's not only grieving you, she's grieving her own experience of being with you. That's a double, layered imprint. Imagine this. You're walking down the street and you smell a fragrance that she used to wear. Instantly, you're transported back to a memory. That's powerful, right? Now flip it. Every single thing in her environment is triggering little echoes of you. The coffee shop you went to, the song that was playing in the car, the friend you both knew. It's not just missing the person. It's missing the ecosystem of life that grew around the two of you. That's why it stings harder than anyone on the outside realizes. And here's what makes her experience unique. When she lets someone in, it's rarely casual. She invests, she imagines, she attaches feelings not just to who you are, but to who you are with her. When she laughed with you, she wasn't just laughing at the joke, she was laughing at the feeling of being seen, being understood. So when you're gone, it's not just silence she's dealing with. It's the absence of being known that way, and that cuts deeper than most people ever admit. You might think she's being dramatic, or that she's overthinking it. But I'll tell you right now, that's not what's happening. She's just living with an emotional depth that you might not even recognize until you felt it yourself. And, ironically, she's probably not even showing you the full extent of what she feels. Because if you saw her day, today, you'd think, she's holding it together, she's strong. And she is strong. But strength doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. Strength just means she's carrying it quietly. Now, here's something I want you to really think about. When you lose her, it's a loss. You feel it. You know it. But when she loses you, she's not just losing the relationship. She's losing the narrative she was writing in her head about the two of you. And that narrative, the love story, the future, the moments yet to be lived, that's the emotional imprint I'm talking about. That's why her loss feels heavier. Because she's not just carrying the past, she's carrying the weight of what could have been. And I think sometimes we dismiss that because it's invisible. You can't see those memories. You can't see those imprints. You can't measure them. But make no mistake, they are real. They are as real as the ground beneath her feet. And every time She takes a step forward without you. She's walking on terrain that feels a little different now. It doesn't feel the same because part of her map has been redrawn. So when I tell you that she feels your loss more than you think, it's not to say that you don't feel anything. It's not to make it a competition. It's to wake you up to the truth that love leaves a legacy inside someone's body, inside their heart, inside their daily rhythm. And when you've been important to someone like that, your absence is not just a hole, it's an earthquake. And the aftershocks keep coming long after you've walked away. That's why, if you ever underestimate the impact you've had, you're making a mistake. Because whether she tells you or not, whether she cries in front of you or not, whether she seems composed or not, she is carrying that imprint with her. And it's deeper than you'll ever fully know. And that's the kind of loss you don't just get over. You learn to live with it, you learn to adapt, but it always leaves a mark. Because emotional imprints don't fade, they shape us. What most people don't realize about heartbreak is that it's rarely just about losing a person. It's about losing the world that person represented. And for her, that world was twofold. When you walked away, she didn't just lose you. She lost the life she was building in her head and in her heart around you. That's why it feels so much heavier for her. She's carrying a double loss. Think about it this way. When you're in love, you don't just experience the relationship as it is today. You start projecting forward. You imagine where it's going, what it might turn into, how it could unfold. She wasn't just dating you. She was building a future with you in her mind. She was picturing the trips you'd take, the holidays you'd spend together, the family dinners, the silly routines that would become traditions. She was emotionally investing in a life that hadn't even happened yet. And when the breakup came, it wasn't just about saying goodbye to you. It was about saying goodbye to all of that too. Now, you might say, well, isn't that what everyone does in a relationship? And yes, to some degree. But the way she does it is layered. It's detailed. It's vivid. It's not just vague ideas. She's thought about how your laugh would sound when you'd be old together. She's thought about how she'd feel introducing you to people in her life years from now. She's thought about the little comforts you'd provide on the hard days down the line. So when it ends, she's not just missing the person she had yesterday, she's grieving 1,000 tomorrows that she'll never get to see. That's dual pain. And what makes it worse is that those future visions don't just evaporate the moment the relationship ends. They haunt her. She still has flashes of what she thought was coming. She'll walk by a place you two once talked about visiting and think, we were supposed to go there together. She'll see friends posting about engagements or babies and feel that sting of, I thought that was going to be us. That's not just the pain of the present. It's the pain of a stolen future. And that's something people overlook. What's so important to understand here is that this kind of grief is quiet. It's not always obvious. You may not see it when she's at work, when she's out with friends, when she's smiling for the camera. But underneath that smile, there's a whole inner world where she's mourning something invisible to everyone else. And it's exhausting, because she's not just waking up each day missing what was. She's waking up each day realizing what won't ever be. That's why her healing looks different. When someone tells her, you'll get over it, just move on, it sounds hollow. Because how do you just move on? From both a person and a life you thought you were building. It's not as simple as closing a chapter. It's like closing the book, throwing it away, and realizing the whole story you thought you were writing doesn't exist anymore. And that's devastating. Now here's the thing. This doesn't mean she can't heal. It doesn't mean she won't go on to create new memories, new visions, new love. But in the moment of loss, she's not only saying goodbye to what was, she's saying goodbye to an identity she built around being with you. She had a version of herself that existed in that future. She saw herself as your partner in crime, as your safe place, as your forever person. And when that's ripped away, she's left with this question: who am I without that story? That's the kind of loss that cuts to the core. And you might be thinking, but I didn't ask her to build all that in her head. No, you didn't. That's not how it works. She built it because she cared. She built it because she was invested. She built it because she wanted a future with you. That's not a weakness, that's love. That's what it means to truly give yourself to someone. You don't just show up for today, you offer pieces of tomorrow too. And when that tomorrow disappears, of course it hurts. So when I say she carries dual pain, this is what I mean. It's the pain of losing you as the person in her life today, and it's the pain of losing everything she believed you were both walking toward. One is hard enough. Two at the same time. That's why it feels like the ground beneath her is splitting open. And if you ever wonder why she struggles longer than you think she should, or why the sadness lingers even when she seems okay on the outside, it's because she's not just healing from a breakup. She's healing from an entire world that collapsed in her imagination. And that takes time. That takes strength. That takes rebuilding a sense of self without the map she thought she had. The truth is, when you were with her, she wasn't just in love with who you were. She was in love with who you could become together. And when that's gone, it's not just a loss. It's a heartbreak multiplied. Because she's not grieving one thing. She's grieving two. One of the things we don't often acknowledge in relationships is how differently two people can carry emotions. And with her, one of the most defining qualities she has is empathy. Empathy isn't just about understanding your feelings. It's about absorbing them. It's about feeling them in her own body. And when you realize that, you begin to understand why the loss of you hits her twice as hard as you ever imagined. When she loved you, she didn't just care about your happiness, she felt it. When you were excited, she carried that same energy with her. When you were stressed, she carried that too. That's what empathy does. It doesn't allow her to keep a safe distance from your emotions. She becomes immersed in them. So when the relationship ends, she's not only grieving the part of her that's missing you, she's grieving all of the emotional investments she made in your well-being, in your moods, in your dreams. That's what makes the pain so layered. Think about those moments when you came home drained and she instantly picked up on it. She may have been tired herself, but she shifted her energy to try and lift yours. That's what she did over and over again. Absorbing your struggles, making space for your fears, taking them on as if they were her own. That's empathy. And now that you're gone, there's no switch she can flip to suddenly shut it all off. She still remembers what you carried, and part of her still aches, knowing she can't be there to help you through it. That's the kind of grief people don't talk about. The grief of losing the role of caretaker, of comforter, of safe place. And that's what makes this loss different for her. For you, it may feel like you've both gone your separate ways. You process your pain, and you deal with your side of it. But for her, she's processing both. She's replaying the arguments not only from her perspective, but from yours. She's thinking about what she could have done differently, but also what you were going through at the time. She's reliving her pain while also carrying yours. And let me tell you, that's heavy. That's exhausting. This is why, even when she looks like she's over it, she may still have sleepless nights, still have sudden waves of sadness, still feel that emptiness when something reminds her of you, because she isn't just mourning the absence of a partner. She's mourning the loss of someone she felt deeply connected to on an emotional level. She can't just turn off the part of her that tuned into you so intuitively. That sensitivity doesn't go away when the relationship ends. It lingers, and it keeps echoing back to her. Now, here's the catch. Empathy is a beautiful strength, but it's also the very thing that multiplies her heartbreak. When you hurt, she hurt with you. When you were insecure, she carried some of that burden. And so now, in the aftermath, she's not only letting go of her own pain, she's also trying to release the weight she carried for you. That's what makes her healing a longer, more complicated process than most people see. And sometimes, she'll even torture herself with thoughts like, is he okay? Who's there for him now? Even though she's the one who's heartbroken, she still has that instinct to worry about you. She still feels that pull. And that's the kind of inner conflict that can drive her crazy, because she knows she has to let go, but her empathy doesn't know how to let go as quickly as her mind tells her to. This is why when you see her laughing with friends, when you see her posting pictures that look like she's fine, it doesn't tell the full story. On the surface, she might look like she's healing, but inside, her empathy is still working overtime, still replaying the emotions of both sides. That's why she feels your loss more deeply than you think, because she doesn't only feel hers. She feels yours too, even when you don't realize it. And I want you to really consider how powerful that is. To be the kind of person who carries not only your own heart, but someone else's, that's strength. That's depth. That's what she brought to the table. But that's also why when you walked away, it shattered her in ways that words can't quite capture. Because she lost you, and she lost the emotional connection that was a part of her every single day. So if you're ever tempted to believe that she's moved on quickly, or that it didn't mean as much to her, remind yourself that empathy doesn't just disappear. It stays, it lingers, it echoes. And those echoes of your pain, your joy, your struggles, they still run through her long after you're gone. That's why her loss isn't just hers alone. It's doubled, magnified, multiplied. Because when she loved you, she didn't just hold her feelings. She held yours too. And when it ends, she has to let go of both. One of the things people don't really understand about relationships until they lose one is just how much the smallest things matter. It's easy to look back and remember the big trips, the special occasions, the moments that made it to Instagram. But for her, the loss hits hardest in the ordinary, everyday details, because that's where your presence became her anchor. It wasn't just about being there for the milestones. It was about the consistency of knowing you were there, woven into her daily rhythm. That good morning text, that call on your lunch break, the way you'd sit on the couch scrolling next to each other without saying a word. That became her sense of normal. And when it's gone, it doesn't feel like silence. It feels like a piece of stability has been ripped away. That's why she feels your loss more than you think. It's not just about the love she had. It's about the anchor she lost. You see, human beings crave certainty. We want to know where we stand. We want to feel safe, to feel rooted. And for her, you became a source of that. Not because you were perfect, not because you always got it right, but because you were there. You were part of her map of the world. When she thought about tomorrow, she pictured you in it. And that predictability, even when you didn't think it was a big deal, gave her a sense of grounding. So, when the breakup happened, it wasn't just that she lost a boyfriend or a partner. She lost the compass she'd been using to orient her days. She lost the voice she'd gotten used to hearing. She lost the presence that gave her life a certain rhythm. And here's the thing. You might not think of yourself as someone's anchor. But when you were gone, the way her world tilted proved just how much you were. It shows up in the little things. She picks up her phone without thinking, ready to text you something funny, and then she remembers. She goes to the coffee shop you used to visit and feels the quiet next to her where you used to sit. She gets into bed and realizes it's colder, not just physically, but emotionally. Because the comfort of knowing you were there isn't there anymore. That's the kind of emptiness that echoes every day. And it's not dramatic, it's real. Now, anchors are interesting, because you don't notice how vital they are when everything is calm. You only realize their importance when the storm comes. And for her, your presence was the thing she could hold on to, even on her roughest days. The thought of you, the sound of you, the feeling of you, those were her grounding points. So when the relationship ends, she's not just adrift. She's in a storm without the anchor she relied on. And that's terrifying. That's why you'll see her hesitate after the breakup, questioning herself. Second, guessing decisions she would normally make with confidence. Because it wasn't just about you as a person. It was about the security she felt knowing you were in her corner. And when that's taken away, it feels like the floor beneath her has shifted. It's disorienting. It makes the world feel a little less safe, a little less predictable. And I'll tell you what's even more powerful. That anchor wasn't always about you solving problems or being some knight in shining armor. Sometimes it was just about your presence. Just about knowing you'd answer the phone, or that you'd come home at the end of the day, or that you'd be there to hear her story about what happened at work. That consistency created safety. And when that disappears, her nervous system feels it. Her heart feels it. Her body feels it. You might think, well, she'll find another anchor. And eventually, yes, she'll rebuild. She'll anchor herself again. She'll find stability in her own strength, in her friends, in her future. But right now, she's grappling with the shock of losing the person who gave her that safety. And that's not something you just shake off. That's something you have to grieve. And here's the truth. Sometimes she'll even resent that you became her anchor, because it means that losing you destabilized her this much. But that resentment doesn't erase the reality of what you were to her. It doesn't erase the fact that your presence gave her something she can't replace overnight. That's why when she thinks of you, even months later, it's not always the grand memories that flood her mind. It's the little grounding ones. The texts, the laughs over nothing, the way she felt safe falling asleep knowing you were there. Those are the things she misses, because those are the things that made her feel tethered. And losing that tether feels like drifting out to sea without a map. So when I say your presence was her anchor, that's not exaggeration. That's truth. You were the thing she held on to in ways you didn't even realize. And now that you're gone, she feels it every single day. Because losing an anchor isn't about what you see on the surface. It's about the way the whole world feels different without it. When you see her after the breakup, one of the first things you might notice is how quiet she is about it. Maybe she doesn't reach out. Maybe she doesn't post about it. Maybe she doesn't give you the dramatic, emotional displays you expected. And it's easy to mistake that silence for indifference. To think, she must not care as much as I thought. She's already moving on. But let me tell you something. That silence isn't proof of a lack of feeling. That silence is proof of how strong she has to be just to carry what she's feeling. Because silence is survival. See, when she doesn't text you, when she doesn't call you, when she doesn't show you what's happening behind closed doors, it's not because she isn't hurting. It's because she knows that showing you her pain won't change the reality. She's trying to protect herself. She's trying to hold on to whatever dignity she can, even while her insides are in pieces. That takes strength. Not the kind of strength people celebrate, but the quiet, invisible kind that no one claps for. The kind that keeps her functioning when her heart wants to collapse. You have to understand. Her silence is not the absence of emotion, it's the containment of it. It's her choosing not to let you see the 2 a.m. tears. The mornings when she can't get out of bed. The way she stares at her phone fighting the urge to type your name. She feels all of that, but she doesn't want to hand you her brokenness. She keeps it to herself. And that act alone is one of the hardest things she'll ever do. And if you've ever convinced yourself she doesn't care anymore, you couldn't be further from the truth. If anything, the silence is her way of carrying her love, her pain, and her loss all at once without letting it spill over in front of you. It's her way of keeping her power intact in a situation that made her feel powerless. Now here's where it gets even deeper. The silence is also her way of protecting you, because she knows that if she lets it all out, if she really said everything she's feeling, you might not understand it. You might dismiss it. You might use it against her, or worse, it might pull her back into a dynamic she knows isn't good for her. So she stays quiet. Not because she doesn't care, but because she cares too much to keep hurting herself in the process. It's ironic, isn't it? The very thing that looks like detachment is actually fueled by the depth of her emotion. She doesn't rage, she doesn't chase, she doesn't beg. Not because the feelings aren't there, but because she knows she has to find a way to survive them without losing herself. And silence is the only tool she has left. But that silence costs her. It means crying into her pillow where no one sees. It means showing up to work, smiling through meetings, pretending she's fine when inside she feels hollow. It means sitting in a room full of friends, laughing at jokes, and then coming home to a bed that feels unbearably empty. It means doing the hardest thing of all, healing in private, with no one applauding, no one comforting, no one fully seeing what she's going through. That's the hidden strength people don't notice. It's not loud, it's not obvious, but it's real. And in some ways, it's stronger than anything else. Because strength isn't about how much noise you can make. It's about how much pain you can carry without breaking open. And she carries more than you'll ever know. And yes, maybe eventually she'll talk about it. Maybe months later she'll share the story with a friend or admit how badly it hurt. But in the moment, when it's raw, her silence is the shield she holds up. She doesn't want to be pitied. She doesn't want to be seen as weak. She doesn't want you to think you still have power over her. So she takes the blow quietly, and then gets up the next day and carries on. But make no mistake, just because she carries it well doesn't mean it isn't heavy. Just because she doesn't say it out loud doesn't mean it isn't there. She feels it. She feels it deeply. She just chooses not to put it on display. And if you ever doubt what you meant to her, remember this. Indifference makes people loud. It's easy to be casual when you don't care. But when someone is silent in their pain, it's usually because they're carrying something too big to explain. Her silence is not emptiness. It's endurance. When people talk about breakups, they throw around this phrase like it's the simplest thing in the world. As she just needs to move on. As if it's like switching lanes in traffic, as if she can just flick on a signal, slide over, and suddenly she's on a new path with no problem. But that's not how it works for her, because her healing is not just about moving on. It's about rebuilding. It's about transforming. It's about piecing together a life that looks completely different now that you're not in it. See, moving on suggests that she can leave the past behind her like a suitcase at the airport and just walk forward without ever looking back. But what she actually has to do is much harder. She has to take that suitcase with her, open it up, face everything inside, and figure out what to keep, what to let go of, and what to repurpose for the future. That's not moving on. That's a process. That's work. Because here's the truth, love leaves fingerprints. It shapes the way she sees herself, the way she trusts, the way she dreams. And when it ends, she doesn't just lose you, she has to figure out who she is without you. That's not as simple as getting over it. That's reinventing herself from the inside out. When she was with you, she had an identity tied to being your partner. She had routines, inside jokes, a way of walking through the world that always factored you in. Now, she has to rewrite all of that. She has to figure out how to wake up in the morning and not expect your text. She has to figure out what to do with all the memories that show up in her mind uninvited. She has to figure out who she is when she's no longer part of her. We. And that's not just moving on. That's rebuilding a whole new version of herself. And the thing is, she's not just healing from what happened. She's also healing from what didn't happen. She has to let go of the future she thought you'd share. She has to release the version of life she imagined. Holidays together. Milestones. The way she thought her story was going to unfold with you by her side. That's a whole other layer of grief. Because you're not just saying goodbye to a person. You're saying goodbye to a dream. And letting go of a dream doesn't happen overnight. That's why her healing takes time. Not because she's weak, not because she's stuck, but because she's working through layers of loss that most people don't even see. She's working through the pain of missing you. Yes, but also through the pain of missing who she thought she was going to be with you. That's why telling her to move on doesn't make sense. She's not just moving forward, she's transforming. And transformation is messy. Some days she'll feel strong, like she's finally getting her footing back. Other days she'll feel like she's right back at square one, drowning in memories. But each of those days matters. Each of those days is part of the rebuilding. She's slowly carving out a new identity. One that isn't defined by loss, but by resilience. And eventually she'll get there. Eventually, the ache won't control her. Eventually, she'll stop being defined by what she lost and start being defined by what she's gained from surviving it. She'll learn things about herself she never knew. Her capacity for endurance, her ability to stand on her own, her strength to love again without fear. That's the gift buried inside the heartbreak. Not moving on. Transformation. But right now, when it's fresh, when the wounds are open, it's not about finding silver linings. It's about making it through the day without collapsing under the weight of it all. And when she does that, when she chooses to keep going, when she chooses to keep building, piece by piece, moment by moment, that's not moving on. That's bravery. That's resilience. That's growth. So don't underestimate what her healing really is. It's not just leaving you behind. It's not just starting over. It's reconstructing her entire sense of self in a world that feels unfamiliar without you in it. And that's why she feels your loss more than you think. Because in losing you, she doesn't just lose a relationship. She's forced to redefine her entire story. Her healing isn't about forgetting. It's about becoming.